Yesterday we were talking about context free grammars, and we kind of ended our lecture at this point. Today we are not going to learn much new, but what I thought that we should be doing a lot of practice so that we have better foundation for context free grammars. If required, we might have some extra lectures someday just to cover if we are lacking the syllabus, but today we will try to go ahead with some basic few more new concepts, and then we will just try to practice more on context free grammars. Okay, so let me just quickly introduce few new concepts, and then we should try designing more and more context free grammars for different languages. We talked about leftmost, rightmost derivations, we talked about sentential form, we talked about recursive inference, we talked about several other things, application to compiler, and then we were talking about writing context free grammars, right? And I asked you to read proof that when you design a context free grammar, how you prove that yes, it is actually responding to the same language, right? So I hope you have already read it. So next concept is parse tree. So I hope you already know what is a tree, right? You have studied data structures or discrete maths. So tree is nothing but a graph, and which doesn't have a cycle. It's a connected graph without any cycle, and if it is disconnected, so it becomes a forest, right? Now we have trees as a data structure is also available. I think binary trees and other several things you have studied, where there is a root and then it grows downwards than the natural trees that exist in our world, right? So our trees grow upwards, but it grows downwards in computer science, and it starts from a root node, and then you have nodes getting attached to it, and it's called what is an internal node and what is a external node. So external nodes are something that are hanging at the bottom in some branch, so its degree is usually 1. Internal nodes are those nodes whose degree is more than 1. I think these are basic things you already know. So I will just go ahead and define what is a parse tree in this case. So it satisfies 3 criteria mostly. The first one is that each interior node is labeled by a variable, right? So that is the first one, that if you have interior node, it is always labeled by a variable. So that is very important, because terminals, so we will try to establish a relationship between derivations and parse trees and other things very soon, but you should first understand these 3 basic principles, that each interior node is labeled by a variable, right? So this you always remember. Second thing is, each leaf is labeled by, each leaf node is labeled by either a terminal so I am not writing the whole, either a terminal or epsilon. Now with this there is another note, that if epsilon is child of an internal node, so it is the only child. And the third rule for a parse tree is that if there is any interior node A which has several children's in this order x1, x2, xk. So there should be a production like this in the grammar. Right. So parse tree is a way to represent the derivations, right. So as you can see, A derives into this. This is the body. So always a body hangs with its head. So whatever is the body, that gets hangs with its head. And why we say that whenever epsilon is a child, it's the only child, because whenever you will have epsilon production, so this production is called epsilon production. We haven't named it. Whenever you have the body as epsilon, we call the production as epsilon production. So whenever you have epsilon production, the body is always just epsilon. So you will always see that if this is epsilon production, it will be the only child hanging to its parent, right. You will not have multiple childs. So epsilon will not available with its sibling. Is that clear? Now, although parse trees can start with any variable, we said that, but we are interested in just one parse tree which starts from the start state, because that parse tree is somewhat representing the sentential form and also the derivation from the start symbol. So all the parse trees rooted at the start symbol are of special interest. Now there is another definition that we should understand, is called yield of a parse tree, right. So what is yield of a parse tree? So suppose that something like that. So once you have all the leaf nodes, right, all the leaves of the parse tree, when you read it from left to right, right. So whenever you have drawn a parse tree, the leaf nodes that you have achieved, when you read from left to right, right. So what you get, that is the yield. So in this case, the yield is alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 2 dash, and likewise up to alpha k dash. For example, if I have this parse tree, I am just writing so the yield of the parse tree will be A, B, C, D. So basically you are connecting all the leaf nodes from left to right, and what string you are getting, that is what is the yield of a parse tree. So in general, we are always interested in yield of a parse tree rooted at starting symbol, and not any ordinary yield, when this yield is actually part of T star. So when there is a yield which is a string of only terminals and it is hanging from the root node as the start symbol, that yield is something we are very much interested. Why? Because then this yield is actually, whatever the yield that you are getting, this is a string which is part of T star, and also because it is a yield of a tree rooted at the start symbol, then it is also in 0 or more steps being derived from the start symbol. Now we have read three different ways. One is called inference, derivation, and parse tree. These three methods are different ways to represent how a string can be derived from a start symbol or how it can be reduced to a start symbol. So there is a conversion from each of these techniques, that if inference is given, so it's like you can convert it into parse tree, or parse tree is given, so you can convert it into derivation, and likewise. So I am not going to the theoretical aspect of that. It's available in the Ullmann book. You must go and read that. So the general concept is that all these concepts are actually linked together, and you can convert one way of representation or one way of derivation to another way of representation, right? So we will just try to see that how a parse tree and derivation looks like same. So let's take one example to understand that. So let's take s goes to 0, s1, and we had epsilon, right? So it was giving equal number of zeros and ones. So 0 to the power n, 1 to the power n. So when you are trying to derive a string 0, 0, 1, 1, what happens? The derivation will look like s is derived into 0 s1, which is further derived into 0 0 s 0 1 1, and finally you are using the production as goes to epsilon to get 0 0 1 1. Now when you try to see the same in the parse tree, it will be like you have the start symbol, and this start symbol has 3 child 0 s 1. Now remember, when we said the parse tree, the internal node is always, so it is following that. Now whenever you have a product, a symbol a hanging with several x1, x2 or something like that, so it must be representing a production from in the grammar. So certainly it's a production that we have used. Now this s is further derived into 0 s1, and finally this s epsilon. See, this is representing, basically, if you see this part, this is representing this production, right? Now if you take the yield of this parse tree, what is the yield of this parse tree? It is 0 0 epsilon 1 1, certainly, which is nothing but 0 0 1 1, right? So derivation and parse trees are something just a different ways to represent how you can achieve a string from the start symbol. Is it possible or not? So whenever there is a derivation possible for a string from the start symbol, you can have a parse tree whose yield is that string from the start symbol, and vice versa, right? So next concept is ambiguous grammar. So I think we will come back to this ambiguous grammar at the end of this lecture today. Before that, we should practice some of the questions. So let us start with the first question, that if I give you a context free grammar, can you tell me the language? So it is so this is a context free grammar, where if I have to represent my variable set is s and b, my terminal set is a and b, my start symbol is s only, and then this is the production set. Now can you tell me what is the language of this grammar? So certainly it is something like something made of a and b, right? So whenever such kind of question comes, you have to see that, see, this s is the start symbol, and the language represented by s is the language of the grammar overall. But for every variable there might be a language. Okay, a to the power n, someone answered a to the power n, b to the power m, a to the power n. Whenever you write that, you have to write for the values of n m also, right? So you have to tell whether n is greater than 0 or equals, greater or equals to, and what about m. So n m is greater than 0 and m is also greater than 0. Okay. Is it correct? Everyone agrees with it, or anyone has a counter string? So whenever you design, so is it correct? Or does this language has anything that you cannot derive from this? Can you derive every single string of this language? See, counter string is that, right? Just like the DF is. Now, anyway, we'll come back to this answer. Let's check. Okay, if forget about S part, just see that what is that B is representing. What we can derive, what is the language of B if I have to find, what is the language of this variable B? If I have to, what language it is representing? It's not a, it's a small context free grammar in itself, right? What is the language of this B? Can you guess? So B can give us a single small b, or it can give you what? Any more number of b's, right? So you can generate one b, or if you use basically the derivation as b goes to small b capital B, then further it is derived into bb. So you can get 2 b's, 3 b's, 4 b's and likewise. So altogether I can write it as b plus. Is it or not? B plus as the unary operator in the power. Now this is the language of B, which is B plus. That means I can also write it as, at place of plus if I have to write, so b to the power m such that m is greater than 0, right? That's what is the language of B. Now what is the language of S once we realize that the language of B? So language of S is saying that if you try to read what this production does, it generates that whatever is S, you can append it further by A and A to the both ends, right? You can append, you are appending whatever the language, it can further extend itself by appending A and A at both ends. That means you will have equal number of A's in the beginning and the last, right? So sandwiched, whatever is the S at the unit level, whatever, it is sandwiched between equal number of A's. Now this will keep you giving the same thing, but what this is going to do? This is just one time possibility. Whenever you use the production S goes to A, B, A, what it will do? It will give you, okay, the last A that is creating this sandwich at the internal level. After that you cannot further generate any more A's on both sides. That's the end. Then the control will go in the hand of B for further deriving it, right? So then B has to derive. So B is at the center which is deriving. So the language of B is this, and it is sandwiched in between any number of A's, because this is just one A this side, one A is this side. But if you would have used this production, you might have generated several number of A's, and finally S. Right, and then this S becomes, S gets derived into A, B, A. So finally the last A, some band of A's in the left, some band of A's in the right, but equal number of A's, and then B is there, and you know what is the language of B. So that's why it comes to A to the power n, B to the power m, A to the power n. That means number of B's, whatever the number of B's, it is padded in left and right both by number of A's, equal number of A's, most important. Now we already know that the B to the power m, where m is greater than 0. What about A to the power n? What is the A's limit? You know that certainly at least you have to use this production. So at least one A will be always present there. Therefore n has to be greater than 0. Is it clear? So finally this is the correct language. Anyone has any doubt in this? Okay, let's take another question then. Okay, let's try doing this. Is the question clear? So, L is basically 0 to the power n, 1 to the power m is not equals to n. Anyone with the answer, please type in. Or if you don't want to write and you want me to write, you can just unmute yourself and say, I will write it. Anjusha, can you rewrite your answer? Okay, so one answer is S goes to 0, S1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. That is answer number 1. This is by Surya Teja. Samarth has given S goes to 0, 0, S1, 0, S11, 0, 1. Okay, good. This is answer 2. Any more answers? Okay, Anmol has given answer S goes to 0, S, S1 and epsilon. Right? Something similar to what Anjusha was giving. This is what Anmol has given. Nishita has given the same 0S, S1 and epsilon. Ayush Deshmukh has given as goes to, oh wow, Sashwat, great. So your answer looks quite correct, is it? 0S1, 1, 0. See, I think you guys can keep giving the counter string for these CFGs. So let me give numbering so that this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. What is counter string for number 1? Good. I think Sashat has given already the counter string that 0, 0, 0, 1 is not acceptable. Is it? Certainly. Because as per the string, you will have 2 ones at any point of time. What about the second one? Second one, I think you can generate 0, 0, 0 and then 3 ones. Sorry. 4 zeros, 4 ones will be possible. 4041s. Not 3031s, 4041s Anmol. Because another 01 will come. There is no epsilon. What about question number 3? This simply generates 1. 01, right? 0s, then S1, you can get 01. And this one, what about this one? This will not be, this generates 1 extra, right? The problem with this is, although it gives not equals to, but it doesn't give all possibilities. Because it cannot generate 0 0 0 1, can it? Again the same limitation. Okay, so enough counter strings. Any other options? Come on. Sorry Anmol, that will not also help. Again the same limitation. Okay, let me write the updated version from Anmol's side. It says 0s, s1 and 0 and 1. Can you tell me any counter string for it? And few more grammars are here by Ashita, which says 0 0 s, s1 0 1. Another one by Samarth that gives the productions as 0 0 s1, 0 s1 1, epsilon 0 1. Yeah, it can give you 0 1, right? Correct, Sashwat. Sashwat, you are really good at finding counter examples. You should help me grading copies in the exam if I take any written test. I should take your help. What about the other ones that is given by Ashita and Sama? So 0 0 s. I think 0 1. Yeah, again 0 1 is the same counter example for this. Thank you, Jyotika. And for this one, you have the same problem, right? This one looks very similar to this one. Yeah, this one are same. Just epsilon is there, but that will not help in any way. This will give 3 zeros, 3 ones. Correct. Good, Jyoti. Thank you, Shashwat. So, anyone who wants to further try it? See, let me help you, give you a hint. Or you may take another few seconds. Okay, last option. Last from Anmol's side 0 0 s, s1 1, 0 1. So, does it give all? Or does it miss anything? Oh, yes, yes, yes. See, you have to be very careful with the epsilon thing, right? When this is greater than or equals to 0, then you have to worry with the epsilon. So, let me rewrite the language. So, it was that 0 to the power I, 1 to the power j. Was it ij? Okay, there it was mn, but it's okay. So, j is not equals to I, and I, j both are greater or equals to 0, right? See, whenever you want to solve this question, you should use that, break this language into two languages, L1 and L2. What is L1? L1 is simple, 0 to the power I, 1 to the power j, and I is what? Less than j, such that ij is greater or equals to 0. The second part is L2, which is equals to 0 to the power I, 1 to the power j. Now, what else is there? This is I is greater than j, for I j greater or equals to 0. Simple. Now you can write the context free grammar for both of them and just combine it. How can we do that? I think this example we have already done when I is less than j or greater than j. Is it? Let me just go back and see if we did it last time. Yeah, I is greater than j, we already did it, right? I is greater than j, we already did it. So let us just copy paste that thing. So if I is greater than j, what it will give? That let's say S2 goes to, I am writing the variable as S2. So S2 goes to, no, what was it? I forgot. 0s, 0s1 and 0. Okay, good. 0s2, 0s21 and finally 0. This is when I is greater than j. What about I is less than j? Let's write for that. S1 goes to, what it will be? S1 1. I can just replicate in the same sense, right? S1 1, 0 S1 1 and 1. Is it or not? Does this give the previous one? Anyone has any questions for this? One will come before 0. Where, Shubham? Anyway, this is the grammar for first language. This is the grammar for second language. And I know that my overall language is union of these two. So I just have to do the union of these two grammars. How we can do that? Very simple. S goes to S1 or S2, and then S1 is what? It is S1 1, 0 S1 1, just 1. What about S2? S2 is again 0 S2, 0 S2 1 and 0. Done. Can you find a counter example for this? See, that's what always think that you have to build the languages. So I think now is the time to understand that if you want to do union of two context free grammars, it's very simple. Just take their start symbols and write like this. This is the way to do union of two context free grammars. Is there any string that cannot be generated or any counter string exists for this grammar? I don't know. Okay. So if you find any counter string, please feel free to send it to me. Oh, someone is claiming that it accepts 1 0. Is it possible? Is it possible that this string See, the beauty is that always this derivation, see again, there can be several concepts. Whenever you are deriving this S1, you will realize that 1 always goes in the right hand side, it never comes in the left. So, it always pushes S1 this side. Again further 1 S1. Now, at any point of time you derive it into 0 S1 1, still 1 is in the right hand side. Right. Anyway, you can cross check this answer, and if you find any mistake, please do write to me. So, what you learned from here, the most important thing about designing is that if you already know the smaller construct, so you write the language in the form of smaller context free grammars, and these variables, although they were starting symbols of their own grammar, they become just another variable in the bigger grammar and help design the bigger language. So, that is something very important you need to understand. So, every variable might have its own language, small language, that is what we called it, auxiliary language, and it helps to build the language based for the start symbol, and the start symbol represents the language for the overall grammar. Okay, let us take another example. Okay, so I think now doing this will be very easy, right? If I write that language is 0 to the power n, 1 to the power n for n greater or equals to 0, union with 0 to the power n, 1 to the power 2n, n is greater or equals to 0. Can you write the language for this? Sorry, the context free grammar for this? So, L is actually union of two grammars. Now, someone might in a hurry can write it like this: 0 S 1. Okay, here you need 2 1s, so 0 S 2 1s and then epsilon, done. Right? How many of you were thinking about this? Is it correct? Right? Some of you might have thought about that. Is it correct? Why no? Can you give counter example? Very good. So, 0 0 triple 1 is a counter example because you can derive it. You can take the start symbol, you can derive it into 0 S 1, and this S can further derive into 0 S 3 1s, and this S can go epsilon. When you try to pick the yield of the parse tree, what it is going to give you? This is the yield of the parse tree, that is going to give you 0 0 triple 1. Right, I could have written in the form of derivation also. So, you always understand I could have written it like S goes to 0 S 1, which further goes to 0 0 S triple 1 and finally epsilon, so 0 0 1 1 1. Okay, we have two answers. Let me write S goes to S 1 S 2, S 1 goes to 0 S 1 1 C epsilon, S 2 goes to, see, always be careful when you write S, it goes there, right? So, pointer has to be very much, it's just like when you are writing a program, you have to return it to the right place, you have to call the right function. So, S 2 goes to 0 S 2 1 epsilon. Any counter string for this? This was given by Shashwat. Yeah, I understood. I just interchanged your production, but I tried writing the same. Harsh has also given, I guess, something similar, right, Harsh? So, is it correct? Yes. Why? Because what is the language represented by S2? If you try to see the language of S2, what it is? It gives you equal number of this. So, this is represented by S2. This part is represented by S1, right? And then if you take the union of that, so you should not combine the productions and write it together. You have to take a different level and create a new start symbol and do that. Why? Because when you say S goes to S1 or S2, that means when you are drawing a parse tree or a derivation, you are forcing it to go in just one direction. Either S will derive S1 or S will derive S2. It cannot derive all possibilities and combine and mess up things. So that's what is important. That this is, you are giving as the option at the start place that you either go in this branch or you go in this branch, but you cannot further jump from a branch to another branch. Okay, good. Let us do another example quickly. So, L is equals to A to the power m, B to the power n, C to the power k, and m plus n is equals to k. Say m n k is greater or equals to 0. We don't write union, Shubham, we write it as this symbol. So, we don't use the word union, we use it as this S1 or S2. So, S can be derived into S1 or S2, not as a union, right? We are right in the production form, and that's what it means. When we do, it's like a union. Either you are choosing this path for the derivation or you are choosing this path for the derivation. Something like that. Okay, so we are getting the grammar. Let us write and see. S goes to A, S, C, S, B, C, epsilon. That is the first one. Now, let me give a counter example for this by myself before. Oh, Sashat already gave it. Good. Yeah, you are fast. AC, BC, correct. Yeah, right, Shubham. Because S you can derive it into what? B, C, capital S, and this can be further derived into A, S, C, and this goes as epsilon. When you see the yield, you will get A, C, B, C, right? So, it's a counter example. Anyone else? So, it's incorrect, right? Okay, next. Come on, use your brain, think, right? Every question tries to teach you something. What you need to do? And whenever you talk about this context free grammar, you always think that if you had to do the same thing, you had a tape where this A to the power m, B to the power n, C to the power k is written, and you are working on with a stack, what you gonna do? The thinking comes from there only, that you're gonna first push all the A's here, then you're gonna push all the B's here, and then when it comes to the C's, when you are reading it, you're gonna keep popping, right? First you're gonna cancel the initial C's with the B's, then you're gonna cancel the last C's with the A's. If nothing remains, it is actually gone. Okay, next solution. S goes to A, B, capital S, C, C. Epsilon S, B, C. It looks, oh, it will create a big problem. See, this production, you always remember this production, whenever you write like this, there will be a problem, because when you say S, it derives into what? It derives into 5 things: A, B, S, C, C. Next time when you derive again, if you use the same production, it will derive A, B, S, C, C. Now if S goes to epsilon, you're gonna get A, B, 4 C's. The problem is good, but the problem is A's and B's are not in the right order. Correct? So again, incorrect. Okay, I'm going to the next page. I think you guys should give me more solutions quickly. So I was giving you hint, right? I was giving you the hint that how you gonna do it on the stack. What will happen? The inner B's will be the B's will be cancelled with the inner C's, not the outer ones. So the matching will happen between the inner B's and C's. Whatever is left, C's will be cancelled with the A's. So I think you should think in that direction. Let's see if you can really think like that. Okay, we got another answer. Let's check. It's S goes to A, S, C, B, C, epsilon. The problem with this, it cannot generate more than 2 B's, right? Surya Teja. Because there is no recursion available around B's, it will not generate more than 1 B. Okay, Anub has given another answer. Let's try that. So S goes to A, S, C, B, S, C, and epsilon. See, the interesting part, it is like the same principle. When Einstein failed 99 times, he knew that exactly in what all way it will not work. So that's good. I am happy that you guys are trying at least. So you are able to find that in what all mistakes you can do while designing a context free grammar. So every example you should take a closer look that what everyone is doing mistake. What about this one? Counter string. You can realize quickly, it can also give you correct Anmol. It can give you BACC, which is not part of the language. So it should not be able to derive any string which is not part of the language. So that's what I think. This again, example should teach you that what mistake you are doing if you are trying to recursively generate something at together, right? So you should learn from your mistakes, then only you will succeed. Here this teaches you that if you don't have recursion around a symbol, you cannot generate it more than. This teaches something which gives a bigger hint to really get the solution for the problem. This says the ordering gets swapped at this level. That is the problem here. Because if you are using the same recursive function for both of these, it can switch at any point of time, and that's why you are getting the misordering. You have to just maintain the order in some way. If you are able to do so, I think you are done. Right. So you have to design it in a way that it controls the order of A's and B's. Okay. What? Ayush, your production is very simple. This is small. Okay, we got one solution from. Okay, go ahead, type full and then enter. Otherwise, productions will just get scattered here and there, right? So you have S1, this is answer from Jyotika. Okay, let's say S1, it goes to A, S2, C, A, S1, C and AC. Then you have S2 as B, S2, C and BC. Any counter example for this one? So this is from Jyotika. What about Srilekha also has typed. Let me just write. S1 goes to A, S2, C, AC and oh, is it same? Yeah, it looks same. So let me not type it again, right? Yeah, so Jyotika and Srilekha gave the same answer. Yeah. Oh, so Surya Teja is saying that upsilon is missing. So right, you have to very careful with the values of the limit of m and k. So if the limit is 0, you have to really be careful that what is the limit, right? Anub has given another one as goes to A, AC, epsilon, and A goes to B, AC, epsilon. Okay, Harsh has given, I think, with epsilons. So yeah, here the problem might be, I think epsilon cannot be generated, although epsilon is a valid string, right? Which should be possible because epsilon has m plus n equals to k. So let me write what Harsh has written. So S1 goes to A, S1C and S2 and epsilon. What about S2? S2 is B, S2C and epsilon. This is what Harsh has given. Anmol's is same, is it? Let's write S1 goes to A, S2 C, A, S1 C, and then you have AC and epsilon, and then S2 is B, S2 C, B, C and epsilon. I don't know, okay. Oh, so Anmol has just added epsilon to the previous what others have given. Which one is wrong, Anjusha? Okay, so let me give. Certainly this one has a problem because you cannot. Is there any problem? Oh yes, there is a problem. See, recursion is there, but again not over S, right? So the problem is S transfers its control to A quickly in the first attempt, and then you are not able to generate more than one number of A's. So this is incorrect. This one is same, just with epsilon. So if this one is incorrect, certainly this one is also incorrect. Any counter string for, let's say, solution 1 and solution 2? Correct, Anmol. So, okay, let's say that this is not 1, this is the updated version, right? 0.2, version 0.2. So 1 and 2 now what? Yeah, so tell me, between now 1 and 2, is there any counter string for 1 or 2, or both of them are correct? You got it, Harsh. Both are essentially same. Both are doing the same thing. They are not different. Just second one is a compact way of writing the first one. Because here you don't need this. When you have epsilon, you can just delete this thing, right? And here you can delete this AC, because anyway you can generate at any point of time. Now with the remaining whatever you have here, this is exactly if you place the production of S2 from here to here, that's what exactly you will get. Just a small difference is that here it is B S2C, here it does A S1 S2C, but essentially they will work in the same way. Whenever you want to generate A, B, C, you're gonna use S1, then you will find, okay, I need to do recursion because I need to generate more S, so still S1 will be used. Then further another one here. So in this case what it will do now, because it is the last A, so you can use this production, while here you will still be using the same, you will still be using A, S1C. Now here this becomes S2. There what was happening, you already got this, so that's what is the small difference. Here the last one you should be using this production, here in the last you should be using this together with this, that's all is the. Oh, good, Anmol, you got the right counter string, correct. So this one cannot give you BC, right? So this one also goes wrong, because it doesn't transfer its control to directly generating BC. It forces you to generate at least one number of A's. If you see, S1 forces you, while here S1 can transfer its control to S2 directly. Therefore, BC is possible in the second one only, but not in the first one. Good, good Anmol. So, everyone is okay with this? Then we should jump to the next question. Okay, let's take a bit more complicated one than this one. So, let's take L equals to A to the power I, B to the power j, C to the power k, D to the power L, such that I, j, k, L is greater than or equals to 0 and I plus j equals to k plus L. Okay, now give me the answer. What happened? Anyone hasn't done it? Why it's taking too much time? It's just a small extension of the previous one, right? So before you guys answer, let me tell why this answer was correct. See, if you really generate A's and C's and B's and C's at the same level, so here the start symbol was S1. So you should not be generating everything at the same level. That's what was the problem with this one. So here what you did, you are generating the B's at a different level, which is defining the internal language, and then you are appending it by external one. So you have to do it at a different level. Leveling means that first what you are recursively generating at the parse tree, and if you see the parse tree, it will be like starting from the root node. Whenever you are deriving, the leftmost and the rightmost gets derived in the using that, right? Then wherever different variable, if you are changing in between, then that derives whatever is the rest. So when you are taking the yield, the left and right is derived whatever is at one level. Then once you change the variable and you start expanding that, it starts giving its own language at the intermediate yield part. Further, if you have another variable, that will give its own yield, right? So that's what you should keep in mind when you are writing the context free grammar. Okay, so we have one solution. Let's say S1 goes to A S1 D S2 S2 goes to B S2 D. Where is C? Samarth. Oh, so he says that this is C. But Samarth, no one says that number of A's are equals to D's and number of B's are equals to C's. That is one of the special case, right? Okay. Let's write. So Surya Teja has written something. Let's try to write that. So S1 goes to A S1 D S2 epsilon, and then S2 goes to B S2 C epsilon. Oh, again the same problem, I guess, right? So this is incorrect, this is incorrect, I think. Okay, Harsh has written something. Let's write that. S1 goes to A S1 C S2 epsilon. S2 does A S2 D S3 epsilon. S3 does B Oh, there is a small problem, I guess, in Harsh context free grammar. Okay, we'll see. S4 goes to B. I think that you got the idea, Harsh, but you just, I think, did a small mistake. Where BDC will be accepted? Oh yeah, I think you have written in the wrong order. Anmol, let me write Anmols also. S1 goes to A S1 D, A S2 D, A S3 D. Oh my God. And there is a lot more. I think I crossed my limit of that. A S4 D and S2 S3 S4 and all. A S3 D, A S4 D, and then you have S2 S3 S4 epsilon. S2 is A S2C, A S3C, and S3 and epsilon. S3 is B S3C, BC and epsilon. S4 is S2. S4 is BD, B, S4D and epsilon. Tell me a counter string for this 1 and 2. I think 1 definitely is incorrect because of the wrong ordering. What about the second one? So again you have to see A first gets cancelled with D, but if A gets over, then you should cancel A's with C's. So there should be a possibility of that. But assume that if A gets over, then D should get cancelled with B, right? And if A's and D's are over, then it goes to the lower level. So that's what all the configurations. It's not very trivial, but I think it's simple. What this does, A's with D's and A's with D's, whatever you are getting, and at this point it says that okay, you switch S2, S3, S4 or whatever. Now S2 says that A's with C's you are cancelling. That's what it covers, that if D's are over, then you should go to C. But if A's are over, what will happen? If A's are over, then you could have used directly what? If A's are over, then what will happen? So if you have just one A and you have two B's and you have one C and two D, will it handle it? 1 with D gone, B, B, C, D. Oh, B with D is at the last level, right? B, B, C, D. So you will be switching, right? So you will be using this one as first. Oh, you could use this A, S4, right? You will then generate BD, will it accept this? You have S1. Which one should I use? S1 goes to where? Certainly one of these. So S1, so it gives you A, S4, D. S4 gets B, S4, D. Now this S4, can it derive BC? The answer is no. Is there any other possible derivation of it? You got it and more. So see, you missed one branch, right? Okay, write it again, test it again, and then write the answer. What about others? Are you able to follow? BS3D. Will that help? Always? Is there any chance that it will again fail? Anyone with a counter example for this last answer that Anmol has posted? So see, these were few of the examples, right, that you should be trying. So see, everything has its own new concept in that. So how you gonna learn it? Just by, I'm leaving this up to you to really design and check. I think it is very similar to the last one, but more complicated one. See, when we had to do the union, so there is S1 is a start symbol for language 1, S2 is the start symbol of the context free grammar for language 2. When you wanted to do L1 union L2, what we did? We took a new start symbol goes to S1 or S2. This gave us union. What about if I write this? S goes to S1, S2. What you will get? If I write S1 to S2, what will be the relationship between L1 and L2? Correct, Samarth. Concatenation. Why? Because then if you are drawing the parse tree, you will realize that it is S goes to S1, this goes to S2. Now whatever is the yield of this subtree and whatever is the yield of this subtree, they will get just concatenated, right? When you take the yield. So altogether, when you want to do the concatenation, you should be using this way to club two languages. Now this is about this. Let's say if I want to get the L1 star, what should I do? I have some language L1 with its start symbol S1. I want to get L1 star. What should I do? And the concept is very simple. If you want to really write 0 star, the language for 0 star, how you gonna generate? So if you remember B star or 0 star, we used to do S goes to S0 and epsilon, right? So it's a similar thing. Here what it becomes S, S1, epsilon, done. Right. So this is how you can get the star one. So these are the concepts that you can use to really generate the different possibilities. So these are basic concepts that you may utilize while designing the context free grammar. One concept that I really wanted to just cover before we close this lecture is about ambiguous grammars, right? So sometimes it is ambiguous to really write something. For example, if you use the expression grammar, E goes to E plus E, E multiplied by E, and let's say simple ID, right? So now when you have to really derive this ID plus ID into ID, when you want to really derive this string where ID is a terminal, what will happen? There are two ways to derive it. You're gonna use E goes to E plus E, and then further E goes to E plus E times E, and finally you get in few more steps ID plus ID times ID, right? So few steps I have used. Similarly, I could have used E can be derived into E multiplied by ED first, and then further E, this E I am deriving next, while here I derived this one. So E plus E times E, and then in 0 or more steps I am getting ID plus ID into ID. Now if you try to see the parse tree of these two derivations, what you gonna get? You're gonna get that the initial E is derived into E plus E. Now this E is actually what is E times E, and then each of these are ID. While here it's E gets derived into E multiplied by E, and then this E gets derived into E plus E, and finally this as ID, this as ID, this as ID, right? Now, why it is ambiguous? Why did I say ambiguous? Because when you are evaluating this kind of expression using such a grammar, then there are two different meanings coming out. The first meaning says that you take the second and third identifier and multiply it first and then add it to the first ID. What this is representing is ID plus ID into ID, but in this form, right? So it's like first you are solving this expression, while here when you are writing it says first you are doing the addition ID plus ID multiplied by ID. So you gonna do this first. See, if these were numbers, suppose 2 plus 3 multiplied by 5, what is the answer? If you do this first, you get 25, while if you do this first, you get 60. So this simple expression with the same grammar, although it's a mathematical expression, but it may be ambiguous in terms when we are writing a grammar that it is giving two different evaluations of the expression. So whenever we are able to get such kind of confusion while evaluating or while drawing the parse tree, we say that the grammar is ambiguous. So the language was not ambiguous, but the grammar is ambiguous. So when we say a grammar is ambiguous, there is a basic rule to find out. If you are able to get two parse trees for a given string, so if there exists a string W part of L such that for a given grammar you are able to get two parse trees, you say that the grammar for L is ambiguous. Similarly, you can say if there are two leftmost derivations for the same string, two leftmost derivations or two rightmost derivations. So you should not say left and right if there exist. Left and right might be equivalent to each other and they might just be a different way you are using the same productions, but they at the end give you the same parse tree, right? So either you, whenever you want to prove that there is a grammar given for a language L and which is ambiguous, you have to prove that there exists some string for which either you have two parse trees or you have two leftmost derivations or two rightmost derivations. These are the three ways you can use for proving a grammar to be ambiguous. Now, how to remove the ambiguity, right? So the ambiguity can be removed just like in our mathematics. How we remove this ambiguity? We say that multiplication is having higher precedence over addition, right? So you should give preference to the multiplication first and then addition. How it can be taken care in grammar? So there is a very simple way of doing that. We change our grammar. We rewrite it as E goes to E plus T, T, and then T is what is T multiplied by F, and F is ID. Now whenever you gonna derive E further, what will happen? You gonna get E plus T. What this will do, because E is the start symbol, you will be generating all the addition operation first, which will keep the addition operations at the upper level in the parse tree. That will force the multiplication to be processed first. So whatever is of the higher precedence, that goes at a lower level. while something that has a lower precedence, that is at the upper level, because it will be evaluated at the last in the parse tree. So E plus T, now if this E will further get derived into T, which further gets derived into F, which further gets derived into ID. Now this T, when you are doing, this is what you gonna get, T into F, right, and this T further into F, which is into ID, and this F into ID. Now this enforces that this ID and ID is related first by the multiplication, and then later the whole thing is related to this ID with a plus. Now, can you get another parse tree for it? The answer is no, because if you try to derive here for this E, whatever, you will get the multiplication in the other direction. So this is a unambiguous grammar for the same language, what was the previous one. So there are languages, and languages are not usually ambiguous, right? Ambiguity is a property of a grammar. Now there are some languages which are called inherently ambiguous, right? So what we call inherently ambiguous or inherent ambiguity, so most of the languages there can exist some grammar which is not ambiguous, and we say that those languages are unambiguous, right? But there might exist a language for which we can never write any unambiguous grammar. I am giving you example, you can go back and try writing some unambiguous grammar for it. The answer is this, c to the power m d to the power m such that n is greater or equals to 1, m is greater or equals to 1, and union with a to the power n, b to the power m, c to the power m, d to the power n, n is greater or equals to 1, m is greater or equals to 1. So this language is union of two different sub languages, and because of the construction of this language, you will realize that whenever you are talking about a to the power n, b to the power n, c to the power n, d to the power n, there will be two ways always to derive this, right? So you will always get two parse trees. You cannot design any grammar that can capture both type of strings, and yet for this type of a string you will not have two ways to capture it. So this is called inherently ambiguous grammar, right? So that's all for today. Next lecture we will talk about a different standard way of writing context free grammars. You should practice a lot. You should try writing context free grammars for languages. You should try guessing the language for a given context free grammar. You should try writing context free grammar for regular languages and see if you are able to write it. Okay, thank you so much. See you.